Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here. Welcome to the Sunday Night BattleCry. Of course, I am your host, Mark Meckler, and I'm excited to be with you. Sunday night's one of my favorite nights of the week because I get to hang out with you guys and talk about everything going on in the news and in politics in general, what I'm doing, where I'm traveling, all that great stuff, and I get to answer your questions, which is always the best part. Coming up on tonight's BattleCry, we're going to talk about AI and everything AI and why you shouldn't panic. It's all going to be okay. We're going to talk about what's going on in Iran and so much more. So you want to stick around so you don't miss that. All right, let's start with this week's call to action because you know we're all about calls to action. This is really important. I don't want you just sitting around. I don't want you just listening and being frustrated. I want you to be hopeful. And one of the components of hope is that you're actually doing something to change things, that you're actually doing something to make the world a better place. This week, you have a responsibility in a lot of places around the country. I can tell you here in Texas to vote. You got to vote. We got to vote. It's primary season, and in a lot of places, those are starting to happen right now, pretty early in some places, like here in Texas. You have to make sure you vote. I'm a little bit worried about this. To be honest, I saw in the news this week that Republicans are not turning out in the same number as Democrats. That has not happened in Texas in early voting in a primary since 2003. That's a long time ago. So there's cause to be worried about that. If you don't show up and vote, if we don't show up and vote, you know what that means? It means we're going to lose. And if we lose, lots of bad things are going to happen politically. So I need you to get out there and vote and drag your friends with you, drag your family with you, drag your parents with you, drag your fellow churchgoers with you. Make sure that everybody who thinks like you understands how important it is to vote in the primaries. Primaries are usually low turnout affairs, but for example, in a place like Texas, it really matters. In a lot of these races, probably in most of them around the country, who wins the primary wins the general, about 85% of districts. So get out there, make sure you vote early, get that vote in the bank so that if something happens during the actual voting day, you already have your vote done and behind you. So that's your call to action this week. Let's get into the news. The first big thing, I think the biggest thing that happened in the news this week was, of course, the State of the Union address. And you probably heard it analyzed to death. I understand that. I want to give you what I think is probably a different perspective on the State of the Union. In an election year, the State of the Union, in my opinion, serves a very different purpose than it might in any other year. Certainly always the president's trying to score political points, and certainly always the opposing party is trying to knock that down. In this case, when you have a midterm election year, the president is trying to set the election up in the State of the Union address. It's February. Towards the end of February, elections are in November, so he's trying to set the tone. And so the first question we have to ask ourselves is, as a campaign commercial, as an hour and 40-minute, the longest in history State of the Union address campaign commercial, was it effective? And my answer would be, as a campaign commercial, it was highly effective. One of the things that President Trump is so good at is making it difficult to vote for his opponents. He's very good at vilifying, demonizing, and attacking his opponents in a way that makes them very vulnerable, very difficult to vote for. He did that all throughout the night during the State of the Union address. I think the quintessential moment was when he called on everybody to stand who believes that it's the job of the American government to put the American citizens first over illegal aliens. Watch what happened.
Great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
That's an incredible moment. And that is the moment that launched 1,000 campaign commercials. In fact, the first commercials are already out showing that. This is a very bad look for Democrats. It's a very bad look for any politician. It should be an easy question to answer. The first job of the federal government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Of course, that's the case. Of course, that's the reality. Of course, they all know that. The problem is they're stuck in a box that doesn't allow them to say that. By they, I mean the Democrats there in Congress that sat on their hands. Can you imagine what it would have been like to sit there and realize you've now been put in that box? Like, oh, I should stand because I do believe in putting American citizens first. Or I know other people do. I know the American people do. I know the vast majority of the American people do. And instead, you just sit on your hands. Why would they do that? Like, they do that because the energy on the base on the left is on the radical left. It's as far left as you could possibly get. It's way off screen to my left, right? That's how bad they are. They have to cater to that far left. If they stood up in support of anything the president said, they were going to be attacked by their own base. And so even though it's bad politics, broadly speaking, to sit on their hands when he asked if you're going to put American citizens first, he put them in a box. He did this over and over and over again throughout the night. So in that way, he created incredible campaign fodder for the Republicans and really nothing for Democrats. And when you look at the polling, the after speech polling, he went from 54% of people saying that people who watched it saying the country was headed in the right direction to 64%. He actually gained 10 points. That's according to CNN, no great friend to the president. So I think that's a big win for the president. I would also say he laid out specific policy initiatives, 6 or 7 policy initiatives that were very specific, very pointed, and that are supported by 70 or 80% of the American public. That's a big win too, because what the Democrats came back with afterwards in their rebuttal was Trump is a bad man. That's not a winning strategy. Trump is a bad man is not enough, especially when Trump isn't on the ballot. And especially when Trump is pitching programs and things he's doing and things he's going to do that are supported by 70 or 80% of the American public. So I would say overall, whether you watched it or not, you can rest assured that the State of the Union was a win for the president of the United States. I think he accomplished what he set out to accomplish, maybe even more than what he set out to accomplish. And I think the Democrats were a big fat zero on this one. That's not always the case. But in this case, Trump did what he did best, which is he used theater. And if you're going to go up against Trump in a theater and you think you're going to win, you got another thing coming. I mean, you can watch him in interviews where he's talking to people off camera before the cameras start rolling and everything. He tells them how to set the camera. He tells them how he looks best in the light. He knows every angle of the camera in the House of Representatives. He knows which cameras are likely to be called on when, and he uses that to his own advantage. He used it with Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, and they're out shouting at him and screaming at him and looking like fools. He knew that the cameras would be focused on them, and that's why he did what he did. So I think he got everything he set out to get, and I think that is good for Republicans. I think Republicans look weak going into the midterms. That's a very dangerous thing, but this may be the beginning of turning that around. So again, big win for the president, big loss for the Democrats in the State of the Union speech. Now, I want to talk about something that I think is all over the news. It's certainly all over the business news, certainly all over my X feed on my phone every day, and that is AI. Because AI is in the process right now at an accelerated pace, changing everything you know about how business is done, everything you know about how healthcare is done. Anything that uses a computer or a cell phone or a tablet or processing power, all being dramatically affected and changed by AI. In fact, I'm finding myself trying to follow this. I get up every morning. The first thing I'm doing is reading a bunch of stuff about AI. The most amazing thing is today, it's different than yesterday and more advanced and more interesting and more so than the day before and the day before and the day before. Every day, things are changing radically. You're looking at businesses called SaaS businesses. You'll see it abbreviated SaaS, that's software as a service businesses. Massive losses in stock market value. Why? Because AI can do all that software coding on its own. Doesn't require coding engineers anymore. Doesn't require that you pay these big companies to do it for you anymore. So these companies are going to have to fix their business models or they're in big trouble. This is happening, for example, in marketing agencies. People who do online marketing, you might pay an agency $10,000 a month to do that for you. Now, you might have heard of something called Claude, which is Anthropic's AI agents, and Claude can do this for you on its own. It's absolutely incredible. And so what that means is you are going to be affected by this. If you're still out in the work world, your job in some way is going to be affected by this. And so people panic about that. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. Everybody's going to lose their job. There might be some displacement. In fact, there will be some displacement. But the real question for you is, will you retool and adapt? If you'll retool and adapt, you'll do well. Anybody who goes out and is learning about AI, I'm learning about AI. We have our entire staff learning about AI. You're going to do fine. You're going to use that AI as a tool to make you better at what you do, to make you understand things better, to allow you to have skills that you don't already have. You can put them in your own toolkit through the use of AI, through using it properly. So I'm not worried about what AI is going to do to the world in regard to commercial enterprises. You know, every single time there's a new big technological advance, everybody panics, or a lot of people panic. It's going to do away with this. It's going to do away with that. You get a car, it does away with the buggy makers and the whip makers, right? And that's what the car does to the horse and carriage business. You get computers, it does away with manual accountancy. People start using computers. You have QuickBooks instead of an accountant doing everything by hand. And so people would think, oh, well, the whole industry is changing. Well, let me tell you a couple of stories from history. In the 1500s, a man brought a loom for weaving socks to the Queen of England and asked, it was Elizabeth I, and asked her for a royal patent. And she said no. And the reason she said no is because she said she was thinking of all the people that hand knit socks that would lose their jobs. And instead, she just denied this thing. And so that technology did not get introduced during her reign. The guy who invented it moved to France, and he never made anything of it in France. But 100 years later, that machine and that technology made its way back to England. And England became the largest textile manufacturer and the largest textile empire in the world. What happened out of that? Regular people got richer. Regular people got better jobs. Standard of living increased. There are whole new industries invented that didn't exist before. My point is, well, yeah, some people got displaced, but more importantly, a lot more people got rich and their standard of living increased. This is what happens when you have new technologies. Some of you, like me, might be old enough to remember the days before ATMs. Right now, you can go to an ATM anywhere, get cash. You don't have to talk to a person. You don't have to go into a bank. You used to have to go into a bank to do that. And everybody panicked. There's not going to be any more tellers in banks. There's going to be no more teller jobs. All those people are going to lose their jobs. To the contrary, what happened is tellers got shifted to more valuable work, relationship work that computers can't do. And they started doing the important relationship building work today. And shortly thereafter, more tellers than ever before. Tellers didn't lose their jobs. The work shifted to higher value and frankly, more satisfying work. Relationship work, a lot more satisfying than, counting out 10s and 20s to somebody. So every time, and I do mean every single time, there's a new disruptive technology, people panic and they're generally wrong. And there's a reason that they're wrong. I'm not being hypercritical of people in general. What I'm saying is when you can see the hard facts in front of you, people are going to lose their jobs. Things are going to shift out from underneath people. They're going to be disruptions. Those are things you know for sure. You can see those things in front of you. What you can't see is what you don't know, because we can't see very far into the future. We can't see the new industries that will be invented that we don't even imagine right now, the new growth industries, the new technologies that will be spawned out of AI. You can't see any of that stuff right now. So we focus on that which we can see, and that causes the panic. I'm just telling you, don't panic. Dig in, learn about it. It's not that hard. I'm doing a bunch of it. A bunch of my employees are doing a bunch of it. So just dig into AI and start to learn about it. Experiment. Go to grok.com and start to ask it questions. Ask it to teach you a course on AI. You can literally say, hey, I don't know anything about AI. Type this in. You can speak it in. I don't know anything about AI. I'd like you to be my AI tutor. Walk me through. And in a couple of hours, I'd like to be an expert on the state of AI in the world today. And then you could ask it, what could I do in my own life with AI? Ask me a series of questions. This is what I would say to Grok, or maybe you're using Claude, or maybe you're using Gemini, whatever you're using, and just say, I'd like to ask you, meaning you, the AI, to ask me a series of questions that will help you understand how I could be using AI to enhance my own life, enhance my own professional life. I'm just going to say, use it or lose it, because you're going to use it, you're going to be ahead. If you're not, you're going to be the loser in the new economy. So you want to be really careful about digging in, using it. One last major caveat: any technology that can be used for good can also be used for bad. People say AI is evil, AI is bad. Yes, if it's used for bad things by evil people, then AI is bad or evil, but it's just a tool. You can use AI for good, or you can use it for bad. You can put boundaries around it based on your own value set. In Convention of States, we're building boundaries around the AI we're going to use. The boundaries are the Bible, Western civilizational history, the history of the founders and the framers of this country, the founding documents, the writing of the economics around the founding, the philosophies around the founding. All that stuff is going to form the boundaries of our use of AI. So use it wisely, use it for good. And then I think AI is going to be a great thing, and not just in my life, not just in business, but in your life as well. Speaking of everything changing, I'm not sure what's going on in Iran, but it seems like things are changing, and changing pretty dramatically. We have the biggest buildup of forces in the Gulf since the Gulf War. More every day: refueling tankers, fighter jets, reconnaissance aircraft, aircraft carriers. USS Gerald Ford has now entered the area. That's the largest aircraft carrier in the world. So we have two aircraft carrier groups right there in the Middle East. Sure seems like something's happening. And then I saw in the news, it appears that Israel has given an order for the U.S. embassy in Israel has given an order for all non-essential personnel to leave the country. That sure makes it look like something's happening. Negotiations appear to have stalled. The U.S. is saying basically no nuclear power for Iran. Iran is saying we're not going to agree to that. That seems to be the break point. And so it seems like something's going to happen. It seems like there is going to be kinetic action against Iran at some point soon. My personal opinion is Iran is a foe. Iran is the greatest exporter of terrorism and radical Islam in the world right now. And I think by neutralizing that regime to the best of our abilities, then I think that's better for the world. And so that's just my position, by the way. And my position on that is, that's just my opinion. I don't know if I'm right. That's just my opinion. You might have a different opinion, and your opinion might be right. People could have different opinions on foreign policy. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them evil. It just means they have different opinions. So if you're going to go debate this with somebody, feel free to do it, but don't judge them as a human being, whether they think we should do something there or not, because I just don't think that's correct. I think these are foreign policy debates. There are consequences to our actions. I think sometimes there are moral consequences to those actions. So we should just consider all that stuff carefully. Well, the balance may be shifting with AI in the world, and the balance may be shifting with what's happening in Iran. The balance is also shifting in the media landscape. And I would argue that it's shifting for the better. For decades and decades and decades in this country, I'd argue at least since the 1960s. So 1960s, you're looking at least 60 years. The left has dominated the American media landscape. Well, recently we had Paramount take over CBS. And we're seeing changes there. Barry Weiss has been put in charge of the newsroom. And while she's no right winger by any means, she is heterodox. She believes in a neutral newsroom, and she's trying to reshape the CBS newsroom that way. It's been difficult. She's faced internal battles, but I'm all in for that. I think it's fantastic. I don't want my news to all be right wing. I'd like some just straight down the middle news reporting like we do at Just the News. I love Just the News for that reason, but I'd love to see more of that all around the ecosystem. So there's big news in that regard, which is there's been a big proxy fight going on to take over Warner Brothers Discovery. And it was between Paramount as one bidder and Netflix as the other bidder. Now, Paramount is the company that now owns CBS. That's run by David Ellison. It's Larry Ellison's son. They're building out quite a media empire. And if you see what they're doing with CBS, you got to feel pretty good about it. And if you look at Warner Brothers Discovery and what it is, one of the key properties, not money-making wise, but politically, is CNN. And so people at CNN are freaking out because Netflix withdrew their bid, and it looks like it's going to be Paramount's to take if they want to take it, consummate the transaction, which it looks like they're going to do. They will probably receive regulatory approval. And what that means is that CNN is then going to be owned by the same company that owns CBS and is probably going to start having imposed on them the same kind of newsroom standards, meaning we're going to do everything we can to be neutral. And that's a much better thing for the American public. I really love it. It also means that people who maybe share our values a little bit more are going to be in charge of a whole bunch of franchises that are important. When I say franchises that are important, I mean things like Lord of the Rings. I would much rather have Paramount, and with the mentality of David Ellison in charge of Lord of the Rings, than Netflix, who would no doubt wokeify it. One of the other important properties that they'll be taking over, one of my all-time favorites, and you can tell how intellectually I'm connected to the media through this pick, and that is SpongeBob SquarePants. I know that's ridiculous, but my kids grew up on SpongeBob. I watched it with them. I think it's really cool that Paramount's going to take over, probably preserve that franchise and prevent it from being ruined by wokeness. Anything that's going to get taken over by Netflix, you got to worry they're going to pump the woke into it. So this is a really big move. If Paramount takes over Warner Brothers Discovery, so that's the Discovery Channel also, Warner Brothers takes that over, you can imagine we're going to see a lot more neutral, real, honest, truthful content. That's a good thing in America. In COS this week, lots of incredible stuff going on. Committee wins in Wyoming and a bunch of other states where we had wins on what we call our 34 ready legislation. That's legislation that tells states how they're going to pick their delegates. In some cases, how they're going to keep their delegates in line if they're worried about that, criminal penalties, civil sanctions, things like that. So there's a bunch of those wins happening all over the country. Tennessee, I think there was one in Ohio, one in, forgive me if I don't get this right, Iowa. A lot of stuff happening. I'm having trouble keeping it straight. And in Wyoming, we had the big granddaddy of wins, not quite across the finish line, but they have a budget session going in Wyoming. And that means can't consider anything non-budgetary in a budget year unless one of the houses decides to vote something to a vote by a 2/3 majority. It's like a cloture vote in a way, but it takes 2/3 to say, we're going to consider this thing even though it's a budget year. And so this year, the Senate, by a 2/3 majority, agreed to hear and debate and vote on Convention of States resolution. That's incredible in and of itself. And then we actually went back to committee and came out of committee 5-0, won the committee, went to the floor and actually passed the floor by a huge margin. Big victory in the Wyoming Senate. Now it's on to the House. And so in this coming week, I'm going to be going to Wyoming. I'm going to fly out there on Sunday afternoon so that way I can be there all day Monday in the legislature talking to legislators. And then Tuesday is our committee hearing. I want to be there to testify in that committee hearing. So we could use your prayers and your support. If you're on a sister state team, we have sister states right now calling into those states, not to call the legislators, but to call constituents in those districts, encourage them to call their legislators. It is a full court press in Wyoming. I think we're going to be victorious. We're probably within 4 or 5 votes now. So I say I think because you never know. I don't predict it. I think it looks good. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to get there. I'm going to do everything I possibly can. I'm going to do my part. Up to you to do your part. Get involved and get involved with your state team. Ask about sister states activities that you can be involved in and let's make Wyoming state number 21. So that's what's coming up in this week. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be working there. If you're in Wyoming, come see me at the state capitol. We'd love to have you there lobbying with us. Believe it or not, there is a lot of stuff we agree on in this country. We agree on we need term limits, not just for Congress, but for staffers and bureaucrats. We agree on lower taxes. We agree on a more accountable government. We agree on less government power in Washington, D.C. and more to the people. Those are things that have been locked away by the federal government. They're keeping that power away from the states. The good news is, as you know, the framers left us a key in the Constitution. And that key is in Article 5. It's calling a convention of the states under Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Already 2.75 million Americans have signed that petition to ask their state representatives to call for a convention of states. I need you to do it. If you haven't done it yet, why not? If you're watching the BattleCry, you need to do it. Go to conventionofstates.com/the key, conventionofstates.com/the key. Sign the petition. That will go to your state legislators, letting them know you support convention of states, because we can limit federal power. We have the power to impose fiscal responsibility. We have the power to impose term limits on the careerists and the politicians in Washington, D.C. But that power is in your hands. 20 states have already done it. You heard we might be at 21 this week, so we only need 14 to go, maybe 13 by the end of this week. Demand that your state legislators use the constitutional key and invoke Article 5 of the United States Constitution. conventionofstates.com/the key. I'll be a guest on COS at Home this Wednesday, March 4th. You can tune in at conventionofstates.com/at home. So that's conventionofstates.com/at home. Also, don't forget to like this video, tap subscribe, ring the notification bell, shout really loud that you love this. All of those things will make sure that you never miss a moment of the battle cry. Sign the open letter to Donald Trump. We're over 100,000 signatures. We're going to deliver it to him soon. conventionofstates.com/Trump. And then don't forget, you can ask me anything. And by anything, I actually mean anything, like whatever. I don't care. Producer G sometimes has the best questions, but I'm counting on you guys to get creative and ask me some really good questions. All right, here's one. Amy Sellers asks, are you concerned at all about Democrats taking Republican seats in Texas, referring to Tarrant County special election? Yeah, Amy, I'm very concerned about that. I'm concerned about whether we, those of us who are Republicans, are so lax in our approach to all of this stuff that we don't get out and vote and we allow the Democrats to overwhelm us. I think we should always be worried about that, and I am particularly worried about Texas right now. Cordell Rich asks, will you be in Boise speaking at the Flashpoint event, Army event on March 12th or 13th? And the answer is yes, I will. I'm super excited. It's going to be my first Flashpoint live event. I've tried to get to a bunch of them. It seems like the legislatures always get in the way for me. This one, I'm going to be there. So Cordell, I imagine you're asking because you're going to be there. I hope you're going to be there. If you are, come say hello to me. I love meeting members of the Flashpoint Army. They're part of our COS family as well. So I'll see you there. Vicky Dillon asks, when the convention is held, does each agenda item have to pass 38 states for each one to be enacted? And the answer is yeah. And I love that about it. You could get a slate of, say, 10 or 12 amendments that come out of convention. One by one by one, they have to be ratified. Most people don't realize what we call the Bill of Rights was originally 12 proposed amendments. Initially, only 10 of them got ratified because they had to be done one by one by one. And so that's the way the process works. So you might have 3 that you love and one you don't love so much. That's okay. Maybe those 3 get ratified and the other one doesn't. So I think it's the way the whole thing is set up is structural genius by the framers of the Constitution. I'm really excited. I intend to be at the first convention of the states ever held. I hope you guys are going to join me either by video or live. You'll see us there. If you can't make that, I mean, maybe we don't know what the date is yet, so you can't commit. You can commit to this. You can commit to being with me on the BattleCry next Sunday night, just like you're here this Sunday night. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. And I will see you next Sunday night on the BattleCry.